Welcome to the Same Day Podcast, where we discuss driving incremental business growth and other topics related to real estate, property management, and entrepreneurship. Now to the show at hand.
Hello, Yoni Schmidt here, hosting today's episode of the Same Day Podcast, where I connect with top business and real estate leaders. Past guests include Eli Carpio of Empire Title and Closing, Chris Prefontaine, Jared Goldfarb, Vice President of Bank First, and Scott Reeves, Senior Vice President of Commercial Lending. Today's episode is brought to you by Keyrenter Property Management. At Keyrenter Property Management, we are a full-service property management company helping our clients build, buy, renovate, and operate real estate assets. We help our clients build wealth while taking the headache out of property management and real estate ownership. That's why no matter what rental you have, single family home, condos, townhomes, apartments, we have the management solutions for you. Go to keyrenterpmc.com or email us at info@keyrenterpmc.com. Welcome to our podcast. Today we are excited to have Heath Meador, the managing principal at Holdings LLC, join us. Heath is a dedicated and savvy real estate investor with a remarkable track record of over $50 million in transactions. His strategic approach to investing, meticulous underwriting, and commitment to transparency have set him apart as a leader in the real estate industry. With extensive experience in identifying off-market opportunities, conducting thorough property analyses, and executing profitable investments, Heath has successfully transformed numerous properties, including multiple multi-million-dollar apartment complexes in Tulsa. His dynamic investment strategies and ability to adapt to evolving market trends have made him a trusted partner and a mentor in the real estate community. Today, Heath will share his journey, insights, and advice for aspiring real estate investors looking to make their mark in the industry. Join us as we delve into the world of real estate investing with Heath Meador, a true expert and innovator in the field. Welcome to the show, and thank you for being here.
Awesome. Thank you.
Heath, let's just get started here. Can you tell us a little bit about how you got started, and what initially drew you to real estate investing and just generally like the industry?
Yeah. So how I got started is I was going to TCC and I hated it. And I didn't want to go to college. Everyone always tells you should go to college. And I was like, all right, you're going down that path. So I was going down that path and I'm like, man, this is terrible. I don't know why anyone would want to put themselves through this.
Yeah.
So then I started watching YouTube videos and trying to find things out. And then that's where I initially learned about real estate. And I was like, okay, but now how can I get money to invest in the real estate, right? So then I did more research and more YouTube. And then I found out about wholesaling. So, I was working, at Walmart at the time, and I started wholesaling and using my Walmart income to pay for leads and just started cold calling people. And that's how I got started.
Yeah. And you did this for yourself at the beginning?
Yeah. So I started, I don't remember, I think it's 4 years ago probably. And it was it was in November. Because I remember I started and I didn't get my first deal till, I think June or July. It took me, 8 months of it was so terrible, man.
Yeah.
The only thing that kept me going is I was like, I just have to know if it's real. Because I remember I'd watch the YouTube videos and people talking about making I made 10 grand doing this. Right. So I was trying to prove it right or wrong, right? So I was like, is it possible? Is it not possible? So that's the only reason I kept at it for so long. I was just determined to figure it out.
Yeah, I love that. It took me 8 months to get my first deal too when I just started in real estate. And I was also cold calling. I was cold calling for sell by owners. And I got this one for sell by owner who was in Arizona. She was selling a condo here in Tulsa. And I begged her to let me have an open house. And that's how I got started. Took 8 months though. Man, so that's awesome. You started at Walmart, you were working full time, going to TCC, and as a side hustle started just launching yourself into real estate, educating yourself, right? Doing it all on your own, right? And then tell me, I guess at what point did you get linked up with Arturo? Because he kind of became a mentor for you.
Yeah. So my first deal I got, it was, I think that at 1138 North Harvard Avenue, I remember. So it was a terrible house, right? And I got it for $5,000. And
wow.
I mean, looking back, I was, man, so naive. I had no knowledge of anything, right? And I was posting on Facebook trying to find a buyer. And I showed it to probably like 15 or 20 people, and everyone's like, man, there's no way. There's no way.
Yeah.
You're crazy. This thing should, I couldn't even pay $5,000 for this. And then one day, I was working at Walmart. I remember I was like working, and Arturo called me randomly this number, and I answered as I was working. And he's like, hey, do you have that house for sale in Harvard? And I'm like, yeah. He's like, all right, I'll buy it. And I was like, well, you don't understand. The house is in terrible condition, right? And he's like, no, it's fine. I'll buy it. And I'm like, no, really not. Because I didn't know, right? I mean, I had no idea. I'm like, really, you need to meet me out there. I was like, I get off at 6. I'll meet you out there at like 7, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, he's like, okay, fine. So I meet him out there, and so I had it for $5,000, and I was just trying to sell it for $5,500, right?
Okay.
I was just so, yeah, I know. I was so determined just to find out if wholesaling was even a legit thing, right? Because in my eyes, I was like, maybe it's a scam. So anyway, I meet him out there. He gets out of his car. I get out of my car, right? He doesn't even go in. He's like, yeah, I'll take it. I'm like, but you didn't even look at it. He's like, it's a $5,000 house. I don't need to look at it, right?
Right.
And looking back, of course, right? I mean, why would you? And then anyway, and then he was like, well, what are you doing right now? So, we talked. I was like, I'm working at Walmart trying to wholesale. And then he's like, how'd you learn? And I was like, YouTube. And then he's like, well, it's like, why don't you come work with me and I'll teach you everything I know. So I was like, all right. So then the next day I put in my 2-week notice at Walmart, quit, and then started working with him from there on.
Oh my God. Wow.
Yeah. So it's been
Did you end up selling it to him for 55?
Yeah. 5,500. And I have that check framed now.
Do you really?
In my house.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's funny. I love Arturo, man. He's a real go-getter. I mean, he's just so inspiring. What he's done in Tulsa and the way that he changes communities and the way that you guys just in general have, taken really dilapidated properties and have transformed them into super nice and respectable places for people to call home is like, just, I'm in awe, and it's so inspiring. So, okay, you started out like that, probably could have sold it to him for 6 too. You would have taken it then, right? But tell me, I guess, like you are cold calling. How do you go about identifying off-market properties? What tips can you share, for finding those hidden gems? Don't give away all your secret sauce and recipe, but what would you tell an aspiring young real estate entrepreneur who wants to find their first deal?
Yeah. So, I mean, whenever I started, I mean, you have to understand, I went back and actually looked at my search history on YouTube from to see how many YouTube videos I watched about wholesaling, right? So I watched 2 YouTube videos. I watched one, what is wholesaling? The next video I watched is how to pull a list and skip trace it. That's all. That's the only YouTube videos I watched, right? So I see a lot of people whenever they're starting, they struggle. They're like, oh, I don't know what's next. I don't know what's next. I didn't even know where I was going to find a contract once I found a deal whenever I started, right? But I just knew I had to talk to people and cold call people. So when I started, I think, I paid PropStream, $50 or $100 a month, paid another $100 for a list, skip traced it, and I just called them. And then, that's just, I don't know. So that's the biggest thing. I mean, just doing it is the biggest part. And I think that's with anything in life, really. If you want to do anything, the biggest part of it's actually doing it, right? I mean, you can't sit there and worry about, oh, what about step 10? It's like, well, you got to figure out step 1 first, right? So I think, honestly, the easiest way to do it is just start cold calling people, start making connections with people, building the relationships, and then all the money's in the follow-up. I mean, you have to follow up with people. That's where you'll really get good deals at. But so that's it.
I love what you just said. Don't worry about step 10 right now. Just like do go through steps 1, 2, 3. Yeah. And when you need that contract, right, figure it out. Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Love it. So cold calling is probably one of the best ways to do, just like skip tracing, finding owners through what, like county records or
so like
auction.
County records, auctions. I mean, PropStream's a good source. Texting's good as well. I mean, the main thing, I feel like a lot of people when they start, they're trying to look for a shortcut, but I mean, man, you just have to grind it out. And I mean, it took me 8 months, right? It was so miserable.
Right.
For those
and
8 months.
You did this, no website, right? You didn't have a website at the time, I guess, right? Yeah. You were just
when I started,
people off of
I had a laptop and a PropStream account. That's all.
Yeah. Do you still have that PropStream? You still have that Popstone account?
No, it's a different one now because I lost the login and the email, but that's all I did, right? I mean, I had no knowledge how to run comps. I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't know. You know what I mean? I mean, I
Yeah.
didn't
So
know how
talk
to
about
talk to
comps.
people.
Talking a little bit about comps, right? When you're evaluating a potential investment, what are the key factors that you consider to ensure that it aligns with both, your short-term and long-term objectives?
Like running comps on a house. I mean, it's just, last 12 months, same bedroom, same bathrooms, and then, within 100 or 200 square feet of the
Hmm.
house that I'm trying to compare to. And then I just try to
Well,
find, around there. And I'm always a little more optimistic on my comps, but,
yeah. So wow, you only take a hundred square foot on each like side, and
yeah, so like if a house is 1,000 square feet, I only try to look at comps that are, 1,100 or 1,200 or, 900. So within that range. So I try not to vary
okay,
too much.
yeah,
Um, Especially it's important on the bigger ones, right? Because your price
hmm
per square foot is vastly different in a nice area on a 1,200 versus 2,500 square foot house. So
yeah, yeah. I usually go I do 50% on each side.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, having those thinner margins, I guess, or thinner intervals, brings you to a more accurate value, I'd imagine.
yeah. So I mean, tough to tell, right? I mean, it's always just whatever the market will pay for it in the end, right?
Yeah. So tell me, I guess, you and Arturo and it's also Carlos, right?
Mm-hmm.
You guys
Yeah.
work closely together. You buy apartment complexes, force a ton of appreciation into them, making them super, super nice. How do you guys develop these really sophisticated financial models for forecasting the investment outcomes? What are like the common pitfalls that you've seen that you would say, this is something we should avoid?
Yeah. So something I've seen a lot is people with their rate. They're a little too optimistic with their underwriting of what they're underwriting their rate at on their mortgage.
Hmm.
So things like that. Other than that, Carlos is really the wizard for underwriting. He's like the professional underwriter, right? But yeah, things like rate, your operating cost and kind of stuff like that. Sometimes people over exaggerate what they can push rents. So
Hmm.
that's
That's
also a
dangerous.
downfall, which I'm sure you've seen, right?
Oh
Um,
yeah. Yeah. But sometimes I look at this and, I say, I don't think you're going to be able to get this. But then again, you guys come in and you blow it out of the water because you make these so nice to where, you are able to get these rents because you're really forcing appreciation. I remember, Columbia condos,
hmm
we can talk specific numbers, right? That was a deal you and I worked on closely
hmm
together. Took a little while. I posted a 60 unit apartment complex for sale on, what was that? 21st and 169 in Tulsa,
Yeah.
Oklahoma. It was, 3.3-ish million dollar acquisition.
hmm
And, I remember that appraisal, it came in with, as complete, of course, which is, to those listening and, not sure what that means is, that's an appraisal that you conduct. And you're saying this is the value after the repairs and after we forced the appreciation and renovated the place. I mean,
Yeah.
it came in close to 6, if I'm
Yeah.
not mistaken.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's the thing. Whenever you do, nice renovations like that, you're really changing the area and changing the market, right? You can push the market. It's the same thing, if you're renovating a house and the comps, top out at 200, but, you go all out with this flip and you make it, just A1 super nice and push it, right? Maybe you can get
Yeah.
220 for it. It's the same thing with apartments, right? And rental rates. It's really
Yeah.
just if you provide a good enough product that people will come.
Right. And that's what I love about your group is that it almost seems like you spare no expense, but you make it work because people love your product and they love living out these communities that, are very well kept and taken care of.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
Tell me, I guess, tell us a little bit about strategies you use when negotiating purchases and, terms to secure these favorable deals. I was on the other end of one of those, negotiation
hmm
tactics, but um, tell me what's like a good approach?
I mean, the most important thing is right, you want to feel out the seller. I mean, you have to try to figure out where they want to be, what they're feeling, and then you can kind of figure out where you need to be at in your offer range, right? Like if I'm talking to you and you're selling something for, 4 million, but I can feel you out and you're, really, if you were to sell, you probably could go down to 4.5, right? So then every information piece of information you can get like that is crucial, right? Because now, if you wanted 5, maybe I'd offer you 4.5. But now that I know you'll take 4.5, maybe I can come in and offer you 4.2, 4.3, and get you a little lower than, closer to where we really need to be. So really it's all about just farming. I mean, as much information as you can about the seller, kind of feeling them out, see where they want to be at. And you can tell whenever you talk to people, right? If, you ask someone where they really want to be at, they're like, oh, are you crazy? I won't take $1 less. Or
Right.
like, oh, or you can tell how open someone is, or if they're super closed off and they're, so that's kind of the most important thing.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. The motivation is another big factor, right?
Yeah.
That's always a good one to kind of look for. And sometimes they won't share it, but I've seen those sellers who say, oh, I'll never take $1 less than this.
Exactly.
And they end up, taking half of what they actually wanted at the end.
Exactly.
So it all comes down to motivation. Can you share, I guess, what are some of the challenges you faced while doing these renovations and transforming these properties and apartment complexes, or just in general throughout your experience in the last 4 or 5 years?
Yeah. So, I mean, challenges, of course. I mean, it's a grind, right? I mean, it's hard. It's difficult. It takes grit. I mean, that's
Right.
what I feel like a lot of people, I talk to who are starting and then they get frustrated, after they've tried to get a first deal for a month or two. I'm like, man, it's nothing. If you're getting frustrated and want to quit now, I was like, imagine 2 years down the road, whenever you've reached a wall that's 10 times harder to overcome. What are you going to do? I mean, it's too late to quit then. You can't turn
Right.
around and walk away at that point, right? So I think that's kind of, I don't know, it's just important like to realize, it's going to take persistence and hard work. And I feel like a lot of people underestimate that and they think it's going to be easy, but I
Yeah.
don't know.
Speaking of walls that you hit, right? I mean, in today's economic environment, interest rate environment, right? That feels like a little bit of a wall. How do you overcome that?
I mean, there's always deals out there, right? I mean, if anything, this market with a higher rate has made it less competitive in order to get deals. So, I mean, there's always pros in every market with every situation, right? Rates are higher, less people want to buy. Great. There's less competition for us out there for people who want to find deals right now, right?
Yeah.
Rates are lower. Cool. There's more competition, but rates are lower. It's easier to make numbers work. So, I mean, there's always pros and cons to, no matter what's going on in the market. And I think as long as you just incorporate, the rates or whatever the market conditions are into your underwriting, how you run your numbers, you'll be fine. There's always deals out there, right? No matter what the condition of the market is, sometimes it's harder to find them.
Right. Definitely. Or you have to be creative in how you structure it, which is something that I very recently learned myself. So creative deals are really the best ones. Speaking of, all of this, I guess, like, tell me, how important is networking in your role and what you do, cultivating relationships with property owners, real estate professionals, industry insiders. I remember when you and I first met, was at a North Winston property. I was like, who is this guy? You called me up, you said, I have a duplex on North Winston. Would you meet me out there? Like, sure, I'm hopping in my car. Let's go see what this is. And that's kind of how we met. And what was that? Like maybe 4 years ago?
Yeah, 3 or 4 years ago for sure.
Yeah. But tell me, how important is networking in what you do and getting in front of people?
Yeah, it's super important. And whenever I first started, I was like, oh, it's not that important. Who cares if anyone knows who I am or kind of what I do or this or that, right? But if anything, it's good, right? Because the more you network, then it kind of gives you credibility. Like, for instance, if I'm talking to someone and I have no idea that you know them, right?
Right.
And they call you to be like, hey, have you ever heard of these guys or this or that? Well, because of networking, right? You'll be able to be like, yeah, I know those guys. They're great guys or whatever, right? So it comes in handy in times like that. And then plus, I mean, like if you're looking for properties, I mean, the more people that know that you're looking for properties, I mean, the higher odds you have of finding a property, right? I mean, because who knows, right? It's all about timings, like if you wanted to sell your house, who knows, right? But 6 months, maybe you'll wake up, you're like, man, I'm ready to move. And then you want
Right.
to sell. I mean, it's crazy how it works for some people, right? Like one week they don't want to sell for anything, and then the next week they're like, all right, I think
Yeah.
it's ready.
Time to go.
Yeah, time to go.
Time to go. Yeah. I guess let's talk a little bit about that experience that you and I had on that North Winston, duplex. Do
Hmm.
you remember that transaction?
I vaguely
No,
remember what the inside looked
vaguely.
like, but I
Yeah.
don't I don't remember the specifics.
I think it was a quick
Um,
one. It was like, we had to close in like 3 or 4 days. It was
yeah,
crazy.
I remember that, but I don't remember. I just remember it was bad. The condition was
The
bad, but I don't
condition.
remember anything
Yeah.
other than that. Yeah.
Yeah, but that's what we do. We come in, we take these, bad distressed properties and we fix them up like you guys do with apartment complexes.
Hmm.
And also I guess you guys do these renovations on houses.
Yeah.
But this one was a good wholesale opportunity. I remember that transaction. It was quick, it was easy, painless.
Yeah.
And we've been fixing that one up. Tell me, I guess, talk about the importance of transparency and diligence in the investment approach that you guys undertake.
Transparency, like how it's
Like,
so.
yeah, I mean, say you're working with an owner who you're buying a sub two, for example, right? A
Hmm.
subject to,
Yeah.
and the owner says, "Oh yeah, the title is clear, and there are no liens on the property," right?
Yeah.
Have you found yourself in situations where transparency in the transaction by either side, the buyer or the seller that you're working with,
Hmm.
has caused friction in the transaction, and how do you overcome that?
Oh, yeah. I mean, a hundred, too many times to count, right? Where, a
Yeah,
seller's saying one thing and it's something completely different, or a buyer, someone who's assured you that they can close it cash and, they never had the cash to close it, right? But they didn't tell you that up front. So I think transparency is so important. And I think it starts with, you or me as the person trying to facilitate everything that, we have to start with transparency, right? Because how can we expect it if we can't provide it, right? And I think if anything, it just makes the relationship better. And if we're working with someone who doesn't want to be transparent, wants to be secretive, then why? What's the point, right? It's
hmm
not worth it to go down the road to build that relationship if, you're trying to hide stuff from me about whatever reason, and I'm over here being
yeah,
transparent. So I think it's super important. And of course, yeah, I think you probably had issues too, on transactions with transparency and
oh yeah, yeah. Someone trying to just they're not honest. They're trying to daisy chain something, and
hmm
a seller who doesn't want to sell on an assignable contract, and someone tries to squeeze something in and pull a fast one on you. So it's so important to review these contracts and really make sure that
yeah,
nothing weird is stuffed in there without you noticing.
yep, exactly.
Yeah. So tell me, I guess looking ahead, what are your long-term goals, for yourself, for your holding company, and how do you plan to achieve them?
Long-term goals. I don't know. By 30, uh, that's a
Boy, you're
crazy
so young.
goal.
You're so
It's a
young.
crazy goal. So by 30, I'm 23 right now. So in 7 years, and we'll see. Hopefully, I can look back at this in 7 years and think that I'm crazy, either one way or the other, right? Whether bad or good. But by 30, I want to have a net worth of 100 million. So
Wow.
we'll see. That's the
Wow.
exciting part. I don't really know how I'm going to get there yet, but that's
That's
the fun
crazy.
part. And no,
I know. I'm glad to call you a friend then. If by 30 you're gonna be at 100 million.
I hope. I
Uh,
don't know how yet, but that's kind of my goal, right? Like my long-term goal. And
one deal at a time.
exactly.
And grinding, right? You can't stop. So
Yep.
love this. So if anyone has any deals, reach out to us. We can connect you with Heath if you're looking to buy, sell, wholesale, and we'd love to connect you. And Heath will put your email in the comments below.
Awesome.
Any last words or wisdom to impart to our listeners?
Um, No, I mean, if you're thinking about starting, just do it. I mean,
Just do
that's
it.
the hardest part is just doing it, right? Just take the jump and it's not as hard. I mean, it's not as hard as you think, right? You're just going to have to grind it out.
Yeah.
Anyone
Once you're
can
in
do
it,
right?
once you're in it, you wouldn't regret doing it.
Yeah, exactly. Right. If you want to do it, do it. I mean, why not?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Love it.
Awesome.
Hey, thank you so much. Love chatting with you, and we'll connect soon.
Awesome. Thank you.
See ya.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Same Day Podcast. Tune in to a new show each week and be sure to subscribe to get future episodes.